Auburn, Georgia. Deep South's oldest rivalry. Number 5, Georgia. They are a 24-point favorite in this one. The over-under I have is 11 Auburn points. Yeah. Last time that Auburn hit 11 points in Sanford Stadium was 2009. Well, what were you doing in
Great question,
2009?
man. In 2009, I was wearing a lot of alt metal band shirts.
Oh, okay. All right. Didn't have you pegged for that, but that's
Mhm.
why we ask these questions. Okay. Makes a lot of sense. By the way, Auburn did not win that day when it hit the 11-point mark, the very elusive 11-point mark in Sanford Stadium 2009. Last time Auburn won at Georgia, 2005. Auburn hit a field goal in the final seconds and Georgia's national title bid. A little bit different this time around. Just a little bit with what's at stake here for both sides. This time around, Deep South's oldest rivalry is going to feature either a really pissed off or hungover Georgia team. We will play the results on that one because that's what we do. And it features an Auburn team that, quite frankly, wishes it could be pissed off, but is probably too far gone to have that narrative spun. So, look, I mean, I think you could look at a lot of these different historical factors and come back to the same question: how do rivalries turn on a dime? Because I really do think that if you go back to 2017, Georgia is the unbeaten number 1 team in the country and goes into Jordan Hare, like, who I'm convinced I would have loved to have seen 2019 LSU on the field at Jordan Hare that day. They played a perfect football game. It was like shades of 2018 Iowa, when Iowa just like didn't do anything wrong in that game against Ohio State. And it was just, or I guess that was 2017. That was 17, I want to say. Yes, 17. And it was one of those games where you're just like, yep, we ain't winning. No chance whatsoever. But look, I remember thinking that this rivalry would be a really fun back and forth moving forward, because Kirby to that point had not found the answers for Gus's rushing attack just yet. And we're still kind of asking some of these questions about who Kirby is as a head coach, what's going to be kind of his kryptonite. This was still year 2, as great as that start was, as blistering as it was after the Jacob Eason injury where Jake Fromm takes over, and how I think game-changing it felt like they were on the defensive end with Roquan. But I still that still felt so short-lived, because the SEC championship happens, a few weeks later, and it begins this current 7-game win streak for Georgia. And it's crazy that if you could have gone back to the prayer at Jordan Hare, right? Just tap a depressed Georgia fan on the shoulder, of which there were probably many to choose from that day. Just our boy Aaron Murray, I mean, obviously is depressed as anyone in that stadium that day. I think Aaron would admit that. Just tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, your team's going to win 10 of the next 11 games in this matchup. And the only loss that you're going to suffer is going to be a game that you're going to avenge a few weeks later in the game that matters more in the SEC championship. That's so telling. Like, Auburn doesn't have a path to victory in this one other than Kirby punching an official and Georgia being forced to forfeit this game.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean,
I agree.
Am I crazy to think that? Really, think about it. Last year, we saw this game plan where Auburn essentially said, if we put the ball in the air, bad things will happen. We need to just hope and pray that we're going to be able to play ball control football. It's going to be total 180 from the Hugh Freeze DNA. We're going to turn Peyton Thorne into a running back. We know his limitations, and we know that it could only take 2 or 3 incompletions in the first half for that to turn into a pick 6, and boom, ball game over. And credit Auburn, because Auburn made that a true 60-minute game in which Brock Bowers has to throw on the cape and do his best Superman imitation. And it was vintage Brock Bowers. I don't see that path. I don't see that path this year. Even if Auburn is able to do what it did last year and run the football successfully, maybe take advantage of Georgia coming off this physical game against Bama, I think Georgia should win this one going away. So I'm going Georgia 35, Auburn 7.
I think that, we've said it kind of ad nauseum, that the thing about Auburn, right, when you hire Hugh Freeze, it feels like you're kind of making a devil went down to Georgia style deal where, okay, we're hiring Hugh Freeze, we're going to hire DJ Durkin or whoever, but we're going to be a good football team who is fun to watch. And so far, they have been neither of those things. And I think that, if we're worried about Arkansas and Oklahoma, we should be pretty worried about Georgia. That's kind of my whole thing on that. I'm with you. I think it's going to be a blowout for Georgia. If it, especially on the road, right? Like we talked about the Jordan Hare games. This is not in that stadium, so that was kind of the only thing that Auburn could have going for it. And again, he lost a couple of those games against worse teams. So it would be super fun if they upset Georgia, but that's kind of just hopium. There's no logic behind it. So yeah, I'm with you. I think it would be, I think like 35-7 is right about right. I do want to say, as it is Wednesday, and I'm still getting added with MLA formatted book reports from the Georgia fan base, guys. I think we don't understand my perspective when I talk about the University of Georgia. I really like you guys. I have picked you guys 4 times in a row against the University of Alabama, and we together have gone 1-3. Okay, and I was there when people were doing the same thing, sending me MLA formatted reports telling me that Carson Beck was better than Jaden Daniels last year, which I entertain those because that's a fine, fun opinion to have. They're obviously woefully wrong, right? Because Jaden Daniels has one of the best NFL offenses ever. I say that to say this is always how being in entertainment goes, right? I have been on y'all's side. I was with our good buddy Perry at a Georgia tailgate wearing a Jordan Davis jersey last season to start the season. I have not worn an SEC jersey of not my team, of any other team. Not, Auburn, as much as I love them, not Mizzou, not teams that don't even, that's the only time I've done that. I say that to say, if you are going through Zapruder film of this last podcast, highlighting things that I said, lining them up with the stat sheet, I think your efforts could be a little bit better spent, is all I'm going to say. If we're talking about, oh, well, you're saying 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and yet we only ran the ball, whatever. Guys, again, I thought we were on the same side. I remember in 2018 when I hopiumed myself into thinking the Devin White injury mattered. Okay. Then I saw in 2019, we had Joe Burrow and a new offensive coordinator, and we went into T-Town and lit that same team up. There are only 2 programs that have a better record against Alabama since Kirby Smart took over. It's Clemson and LSU. I've seen 2 of these wins, and they both happen with Heisman-winning quarterbacks. If you guys are going to go overnight from Carson Beck is better than Jaden Daniels to Carson Beck is a bum who deserves all of the blame of this game, if you're going to, instead of blame a grown man who's making millions of dollars, and you're instead going to individually blame 5 or 6 different athletes, if you think that's a winning strategy, keep doing that. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, I guess. Like I said, we all know how this offense looks different. And again, I thought we were all friends, so I could say things like 3 yards in the cloud of dust. I don't want to get in here and talk about Monken was a genius, and he saw the too high safety innovation coming. He moved to 22 personnel before anyone else. He got these 2 great tight ends in Brock Bowers and Washington, started zigging when everybody else was zagging. He was so great at getting Brock Bowers open in the middle of the field. And we all see the same thing. We're not seeing that anymore. Okay? I'm not going to sit here and go back and forth with y'all. So I'm just going to say this. We're on the same side here in terms of wanting you guys to be successful. I work with a bunch of Georgia fans. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. It doesn't do us any good to pretend like, and I'll say this, then I'll get out of here because I really do not have much to say on this game. If Auburn wins this game, I am going to be shocked. But I'll say this. If I can't treat you guys as this top 10 juggernaut or the best team in the SEC, which we have both expected you to be, me and Connor, and then see a moral victory in a game like that. In 2014, when Alabama lost to Ohio State in the playoff, Bama fans were not saying, oh my gosh, I'm happy to be here. They were saying, I can't believe we lost to a backup quarterback. And Nick Saban changed everything. And that's why Alabama fans, we talk about their expectations and how, crazy they are about football. They expect championships. They expect to win every game. If you're 1-9 against Alabama and you have your best shot to beat Alabama for this almost entire time and you can't do it, if you're okay with that, I am too. You're right. I'm wrong. You guys have, I thought your talent was better than it was. I didn't know your last blue chip receiver was, I guess we could call it George Pickens. He was a 4-star. Maybe your last 5-star was Mecole Hardman. Maybe I overestimated your talent. That's fine. I just want to say, where we go from here, right? I mean, would you rather me just pick you guys every week so that we're not all doing this every week? We can do that. And then after the game, we can go, okay, well, we all expected that. That's fine. Just let me know because I really want great things for this Georgia team. I live near there. I love, Athens. Don't want to upset these people, but man, at some level, you got to understand it is not okay to do that.
I think it's different to hear that perspective
Right.
from you as someone saying, don't have these expectations, or I have these expectations of you, and that's why
Yes.
I'm so disappointed. That's why I'm
Yes.
reacting this way. I think it's different coming from that place as opposed to a fan base that just watched a regular
Right.
season loss, which regular season losses are very different now than what they were. And I think it's okay to feel both
Mm-hmm.
frustrated with the fact that the offense, by the way, we got Claire home from daycare with a rash. So apologies again, show a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of grace. Please don't give a 1-star review if you hear a crying baby in the background. We're seeing a team right now that deserves to have these expectations. There's
Right.
no question about it. And when they hear, I don't really take anything from that comeback, they treat it as, all right, it's us against the world. And they're in defense mode. And they're
Okay.
in defense mode. And
You're
like
right.
I get it to a certain, yeah, I get it to a certain extent. I think it's just it's where
Mm-hmm.
it's coming from. It's if you're having those conversations among each other, among Georgia fans, that's treated differently than somebody that isn't necessarily perceived as in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
Although I know, as someone that has expectations for them, I get what you're saying. I
Yeah.
totally get what you're saying. And I think that right now, Georgia fans would love nothing more than to watch their team take out all of
Yeah.
their aggression on Auburn.
And if they don't, like I said, I fully think they will. And that's what I got to say of the University of Georgia. Still think they're a playoff team. The game in Austin's going to be interesting. I might be there.
Love it. Love it. I've got a take that I'm going to save for. I've got an Auburn related take that I'm going to save for Sunday if this game warrants it. There's
Mm-hmm.
a tease. How about that for you?